I did great in the meeting room. When they handed me the ball, had me going over the bags and changing directions, football stuff, I did. Now, if you wanted someone to look good in underwear.
That's where you come to me and coach.
Coach.
And run fast and jump high and not play football really well, that wasn't me.
Light it.
He hasn't heard the music in a while. He's got a little extra pump, a little extra kick to it. Back from Safari, everybody. Welcome to the Triple Option, and welcome back, Mark Ingram, baby. How was it?
It was fantastic, man. Just had South Africa was amazing. Was able to explore Cape Town. We did the wine lands. We did the safari. Went to Johannesburg, did the safari. And then we laid low and went to the Seychelles after that. Got the little island living. So me and the wife, 2 weeks. The parents held it down. They held the fort down with all the kids, man.
Right.
So
I thought we were going to see like a lion's head or an elephant head behind
Some pelts
you on
behind him right now.
Now, I am a hunter, man. I do like to hunt, but those animals there, you know, they're prestigious. They're
might
majestic,
hunt you back.
man. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. You see the leopard, you see the cheetah. You're like, dang, it might look good on some fur, but no, we're going to let them live. We're going to let them live.
Mark, do you see any cheetahs hanging out in trees? That's the stuff
the
that
leopard.
freaks me
That's
out.
the leopard.
The leopards, whatever.
Yeah, the leopard will be up in the trees. I didn't see them in the tree. We saw the big, so you know they got the big five animals. So they got the big five animals. You know what the big five are, Coach?
Yeah, I've seen them.
Okay, so you know the big five. So
Let's go through it again. Elephant,
Rhino, water buffalo,
tiger, lion.
Tiger is in Africa.
No
It's not.
tigers.
No,
Lion.
there's three.
What did I say? I said hippo. I said rhino.
No, hippo's not
Rhino.
one.
Hippo's not one.
Giraffe.
No, giraffe's not one.
Oh, jeez. How about you
You're
just
over there.
correct
I
us?
see
a
it.
little
All
bit, Mark?
right. Elephant,
All right.
lion,
Yep.
leopard,
Yeah. Oh, really?
water buffalo, the buffalo,
Yeah.
and then the rhino.
Wow.
So we saw 4 out of the 5 on the first drive, the first night. And then we were like, we need to find the leopard. We didn't find the leopard at all until the last drive, the last morning.
Do you see
Leopard.
a kill?
No, we didn't see any kills,
Oh.
man. That was
Did you
the-
see a
that's the one thing.
migration?
We saw about 200 buffaloes crossing the street. I guess that
that's
classifies
the-
as
that
a
counts.
migration.
They say
counts.
there's 100,000 animals going on a migration across.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So,
that great migration that's like in Tanzania, I think. But we were in, Johannesburg, 3 hours away from Johannesburg. But it was a tremendous trip, man. Highly recommended. Me and my wife had a great time. We were with friends. Oh, that is basically like family. And we had a great trip, man. And I shout out to my parents, man. They held down the fort with the 5 kids. We came back. Everything in the house was still intact. No broken bones. Everybody
They didn't
still
throw any
alive,
parties?
so-
No grandparent
And
parties?
those
while you
5
were gone?
kids,
They-
those
if
5
they want
kids
to
ain't
party,
normal now. You know
they
they're
can
They
party.
can get it. They can get a party because they held down the fort for us for 2 weeks. So I got an all-inclusive, expenses paid party for them if they want it.
Heck yeah. All right, so Safari Talk is done. Welcome to the Triple Option presented by Wendy's. Go to Wendy's and taste the difference in a hamburger. As always, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening, watching, wherever you are, working out, taking a walk, driving to work, whatever it is. We appreciate you. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We are on social media, 3X Option Show, new episodes every Wednesday. All right, so this week, we're done with the Safari Survivor talk, right? No more Safari talk for now, at least. So we got Mark back, which is a bonus. We're going to talk about the NFL Combine. We are going to ask these guys who they would take with their number 1 overall pick. Plus, what a great guest we have this week. Warde Manuel, the Michigan Athletic Director, also the 2024 College Football Playoff Committee Chairman, is going to join us in the B block. So let's start with the wildly successful first ever 12-team playoffs. Remember, a week ago, executives, they got together to discuss changes or potential changes come 2025. Also, a proposal from the Big Ten and the SEC to alter playoff seeding and buys. All right, so I think let's just start looking back to last season. Coach, I'll start with you. I think we all realize it was wildly successful. We're all in favor of it. I think most of us are in favor of expansion. What were the issues for you with the first year of the 12-team college football playoffs?
Real quick, as a former coach, I think it was fantastic. I wish it was there when when Mark and I were involved in the game. I mean, our 2015 Buckeye team, if we would have got in that darn thing. So number one is great success. Obviously, the seeding is I don't want to belabor it, but when you start seeing Boise and Arizona State had some, the great year, great season, but they did not earn that bye.
Ahead of Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't see that. I've already heard that's not gonna happen again.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued. This is when you say the word college football, you don't say academics anymore. You don't say university. You don't say rivalries. You don't say networking after you're done. Those are all topics of old. The new topic is money, money, money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be I've heard, the SEC and the Big Ten carry the big stick, which I know will hit soon. But that's going to be the topic. God bless the playoff. And everything was great about it. The seeding was not. And I'm sure that's going to be changed.
Yeah, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but I think the main thing, it was great for college football, the expansion. I mean, we got to see Boise, we got to see Notre Dame, we got to see Arizona State, we got to see SMU. So I think the expansion was extremely successful, and I think it was something that everyone enjoyed. But the seeding, the seeding has to be fixed, and I think that's the main thing. I don't want to be dead horse. You mentioned it already, Yep. Coach. So the seating definitely has to be fixed. I think that will be addressed.
It feels obvious. It feels like an easy fix as well. Just to reflect back, 4 Big Ten programs made the 12-team playoffs. 3 from the SEC, 2 from the ACC. Again, the big beef, Arizona State and Boise State as a conference champion, getting one of those buys. And again, what bugs me as a college football fan is it does slightly devalue winning your conference championship. And I think that was the original intention, is to reward these programs, these 4 conference champions, and give them a bye. And there's validity to that. But when the differential is so great, where a Boise State and Arizona State is sitting there technically in your top 4, yes, it pushes the Ohio States back, but it also changes the outlook for your Georgias and your Oregons, who all of a sudden in their first games after a bye are seeing the Ohio States of the world, right? That's the part that didn't feel great. But guess what? It's the college football playoff. You have to earn your way through the playoffs to be the national champion. You're going to find a heavy hitter eventually. But I think if you're the Georgias, if you're the Oregons, you're saying that's fine, but maybe push it back to the Final Four. One other thing that was kind of missing, Coach, was the Pop-Tarts Bowl experience, if you will, right?
The Cheez-Its Bowl?
Right, the Cheez-Its. There's no crazy mascots. There's no fun. There's no laughing. There's no side visits. It is business. And we get it, because this is a big business. And there may be no bigger business in college football than the college football playoffs. But a little bit of college football is certainly lost with this pivot towards all focus on the playoffs.
Yeah, I want to hit Mark with that in a minute, but that was a great experience. My first bowl game as a head coach was Liberty Bowl, and it was phenomenal. Phenomenal for our players, families. I mean, it was an experience in Memphis, Tennessee. And that, you've got to remember, though, that's still there to a degree at the smaller bowls. But you really felt when you went to an Orange, a Rose, a Sugar, a Fiesta, when your team went there, I mean, you're talking about ridiculous hospitality. Great experience, not so much for a coach, because we're all working all the damn time, but I know the players and the families, we tried to make that as positive as you could. And I talked to a couple of the coaches, and they said it's just pure business. It's no different, obviously, the intensity and preparation, but you're flying in a couple of days before the game, and you're playing the game, and you go back home and prepare for the next one. So it is business, and, I'm curious about Mark, because once again, coaches – remember, coaches on the bowl experiences, you know what my bowl experience was? You're up at 6, your family goes to some event, you're watching practice, you're making the tip sheets, you come home, and your wife and kids, boy, we had a great time. I was like, wonderful. No shit.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're glad you had a good time.
Here's our 7-on-7 script and inside run for the next day. So Mark, what's your thoughts on the bowl experience?
Coach, the bowl experience was amazing. I mean, you said it. When you go to a Rose Bowl, you're playing a national championship, or you're going to one of those January Day bowl games, like, those experiences are great. The gifts you get, the events that you go to, it's like, it's Alabama versus Michigan State. You guys do a little competition like Guitar Hero and stuff. The families are all there. It's kind of fun. But at the end of the day, this is a new landscape for college football. It is all business. These players are getting paid now. So why are we worried about the bowl experience? Because it is business. We're paying you money to perform at a high level. And listen to this, Coach. When you go to the playoffs, under the playoffs' current performance-based distribution model, each team earns $4 million for qualifying in the CFP. So we're paying you, and we need you to get to this college football playoff. And then you get another $4 million for playing in the quarterfinals, and another $6 million for advancing to the semifinals, and $6 million more for competing in the title game. So this is through and through a business. We're paying our players, so you don't get a bowl experience. You don't get free gifts because I'm paying you. You can go buy your own gifts. So
I got a great story. So I just learned this in my evolution as a coach. So, when you get the bowl bid, that's right around finals time. And, I mean, you go to a big bowl game, your gifts are ridiculous.
Yes.
Some great gifts for the players and coaches. And so I finally figured it out that I would have someone parade in, and whether it be a leather jacket, whether it be, a TV, whether it be a chair, there's some cool gifts.
Custom headphones.
Had great headphones. And I'd have Mark and Rob, I'd have the player, like one of the players or someone walk around with it and their players start clapping. I said, now here's a cool thing. You 17 guys that are under 2.0 right now, you don't get one. You're not getting one. Now, so if you want that, look right there, study really hard for finals. And then I would pull out the rings because when you win a championship, Big Ten or SEC, you get a ring. And I'd bring out the rings and say, once again, you 4 guys, you're not getting it. Yeah. So that was a great...
Dangle that carrot, Coach. Yeah. Dangle that carrot.
But at first, when you first start, everybody gets it. And I said, wait a minute, I need a little extra motivation here. So I call the families and say, oh, by the way, the old boy's not getting that leather coat.
Yeah.
Help me encourage your son to get that C+ or B in psychology or whatever.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
No, but I love the bowl experience, man. But these young athletes are getting paid, and deservedly so. But now you're talking about it's a business. It truly is a business because these universities are getting big, big money. You talk about 10, 14, possibly 20 million you can earn. You play from the first round to the championship, 20 million. So this is a business through and through. And so the bowl experience is no longer there if you're in the college football playoff because you are getting paid. You could buy your families a ticket to go to the game. You don't got to get the reimbursement
plan.
You can buy that leather coat. You can buy the headphones. You can buy the gifts. And that's what it is now. It's a business through and through. But the bowl experience was definitely special. I'm glad I got to enjoy it.
So the 2025...
I would much rather get paid, though, I think, Stone.
Yes, exactly. Don't bury the lead, Mark.
Money. I'd much rather get that money.
Light it.
When it comes to making the best hamburgers around, the basics matter. And Wendy's, well, they've really got those burger basics on lock, and boy, does it show.
So what's the secret to all those hot and juicy hamburgers? Simple. Wendy's always crafts their hamburgers with that fresh, never frozen beef they're famous for. The result, hot and juicy beefy hamburger perfection every time.
No matter which hamburger you order from the Wendy's menu, you already know that thanks to those Wendy's Burgers Basics, it's going to be exactly what you were craving.
I mean, as long as what you crave is a hot and juicy hamburger, a hamburger made fresh just for you, not waiting for you. After all, the perfect burger doesn't spend its time waiting around.
So when you want a hot and juicy hamburger made fresh just for you, it's got to be Wendy's. Fresh is kind of their thing, Fresh beef is available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada, not available in Hawaii. Well, as you all know by now, we have teamed up with our great friends at BetMGM this season, and we're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks. We'll also have special offers for our listeners each week. Mark, you're listening, right? You're listening to this?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Pay attention. All right, so if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, we urge you to use the bonus code OPTION, or go to betmgm.com/option, and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer, Mark, on your first wager with BetMGM. We're talking $1,500, Mark.
$1,500. But here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code OPTION. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code OPTION when you sign up or go to betmgm.com/option.
It's all about the option, Mark.
It's all about the option, especially the triple option.
See betmgm.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 800-327-4369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. So the 2025 format, it's going to stay right there at a dozen teams. There could be some minor changes. New contract begins in 2026. There was a memorandum agreed to last spring, which basically gives the SEC and Big Ten sole discretion on the future of the college football format. That starts in 2026. So if you thought the SEC and Big Ten already had big muscles, guess what? They are banging away at the gym and they are ready to flex those muscles in the college football playoffs. One of the proposals going forward that the Big Ten and the SEC are said to be pushing is a 14-team playoff. I think we're all in favor of some form of expansion, whether it's 14 or 16. So conversation out there, the Big Ten, the SEC would like a 14-team playoff. The format would be, and remember these numbers, 4-4, 2-2, 1-1. There'll be a quiz on it. 44, 22, 11. Sounds like a great play. The fours, 4 automatic bids to the Big Ten and the SEC. 2 automatic bids to the Big 12 and the ACC. 1 to the highest ranking, group of 6 program, and then 1 out there if Notre Dame should finish high enough in the rankings, meaning Notre Dame is somewhere inside that top 14, or maybe the numbers get pushed around a little bit as well. So that is our fresh moves of the week, brought to you by Wendy's. Go to Wendy's and taste the difference in a hamburger. So the agreement grants the league's decision-making powers over the format, but directs them to have, quote, meaningful consultation and to collect, quote, input from the other conferences before making their decision. So you look, let's just talk 4-4, 2-2, 1-1. Does that make sense to you, Mark Ingram, right now, looking at it from the eyes of the Big Ten and the SEC, and then maybe through the eyes of everybody else?
It makes a lot of sense to me, especially with the expansion of the Big Ten and the expansion of the SEC. I think that is very justifiable. And you talk about the 4, you had 4 from the Big Ten already this year. You talk about 3, you had 3 from the SEC. And people were advocating for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 teams from the SEC that could have possibly been in it between Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. So the 4 and 4 is justifiable. You get 2 from the ACC, which you got this year. I didn't think they were supposed to get 2 in, but they did. They got 2 in. Then you had 1 from the Big 12, and I think they deserve 2 if you talk about a 14-team expansion. And then you get 1 from the highest ranked group of 6, and then you got 1 at-large bid, which is designed to go to Notre Dame, but it could be a 5th SEC, it could be a 5th Big Ten, it could be a 3rd ACC or a 3rd Big 12. So that last at-large bid, which is designed for Notre Dame if they handle their business. But I like the format. There's a 14-team playoff in the NFL. Why not go to the 14-team playoff for the college? I think you have a 28-team playoff in the Division II, which is an exciting playoff too. So I'm all for the expansion. I think the 4-4-2-2-1-1 is a great kind of method, a great kind of outlook on this playoff, and we'll see how it goes. But I think that's fair, and I think, especially with the expansion of the Big Ten and the SEC. When you add in Oregon, you're adding Washington, you're adding Texas, you're adding Oklahoma. I think those expansions justify 4 teams for the SEC and the Big Ten.
I agree, Mark, and I made a phone call when I saw this, and it is going to happen. This is not maybe. Remember in the fall that you had the commissioner of the SEC and the commissioner of the Big Ten get together. Yep. Those are the big dogs, and it's really unchallengeable. So, and what drives the big dogs? Remember, college football now is synonymous with money. It is money, and when you just start throwing, you get $4 million to qualify for the semifinal and a quarter. I'm sorry, $6 million for the semi. First of all, the seeding, I would not be surprised somehow if they adjust it this year, but for sure, I can imagine the commissioner Sankey and Petiti at the Big Ten just said, you know what, we're going to make some decisions here, and I know this is pretty bold, but it's not really conversation. It's we're going to demand this.
Yeah.
We are going to do this.
Yes.
When we take the ball and go play. Remember
Yes.
now, SEC is ESPN. I know they're the relationships there, and they basically own the playoffs. So I can promise you that there will be 4 FCC teams in the playoff.
Yeah, Coach.
I
like you
can
said,
promise
Coach,
you there's going to be some pushback too, and deservedly so from
Pushback
those
from
in
who?
the ACC, those in the Big 12, those in the Mountain West. I mean, we're talking 2 conferences that are holding all the power, and I think that's too much power in too small.
You're
place. We're
lucky
talking
we're giving you 2 bids.
Whoa! All right, we're talking. Okay, that's all right. This is good because I want to hear you, Mark. Because I'm ready to come back at you. I'm ready. I'm for the little guy right here, and I want to see all of college football be welcome, not just the SEC Big Ten Invitational, and
They
who
are welcome,
we decide
Stoner.
to bring them in.
We're
but
giving
not
you
to the
6
same
bids.
extent. Not to the same extent. We're talking. There are numbers to back
Are
this
the
up. Though.
conferences of equal value, though? The ACC was a trash conference this year.
Right now, they might not be of equal value, but who's to say that's not going to change in a year? Listen, you go down to the Big 12, Mark Ingram. I'm going to tell you right now, there is a lot of oil and gas money out there, and there are some big-time head honchos. You can go down to Lubbock. You can go down to Fort Worth. You can go to SMU, right?
Talk to me, Stone.
I'm talking right now. And you get a couple of those billionaire alums for SMU, for TCU, for Texas Tech, and they say, you know what, God dang it? I want to get my team to the college football playoffs, and I want to win it. And we saw how much money Ohio State raised, and they got themselves a national title. You're going to tell me there's not some bigwigs down there in Texas who are going to say, let's go. I love my program. Come on, Red Raiders. Come on, Horned Frogs. Come on, Mustangs. We are going to shell out the shekels, and that is going to throw off the balance of college football. It can happen. Now, will it happen long term?
And guess what? You get 2 bids
happen.
to do so.
That's the problem, though, because they might eat up those 2 bids, and now you're going to look and say, they need 3, they need 4 bids. I understand
Schedule
it.
Notre Dame, beat them, and then get the at-large bid.
Oh, so we're going to talk schedule right now, right? Because all we've been talking about is teams not scheduling hard teams.
Well, you want an
right? 'Cause
at-large
it's gonna
bid,
hurt
beat
them.
Notre Dame. The at-large bid is supposed to go to them. That's the only reason for an at-large bid. So
I'm
beat
with you.
Notre Dame and then go.
All right, so I love this because this is what's going to be happening in some random hotel room.
All you have to do, really, conversation stops when you see the television contract from the SEC versus the ACC and Big 12 and the Mountain West, et cetera. You got 2 teams that dominate the
conversation.
two conferences, and it's. I get it. For the purity of the game, I agree with you. For the reality, you're whistling Dixie, pal.
All right, I like my Dixie.
You got 2 conferences.
Sometimes there was not 4 teams in SEC or Big Ten that I would want to see. Sometimes there's not 4. Yes. Sometimes there hasn't been 4 teams in either conference that I would have want to see.
Preach.
But with the expansion now, you have Oregon there, you have Washington there, you have Texas now, you have Oklahoma in SEC. I feel like the 4 teams are justifiable because there's probably going to be 3 or 4 teams, and then the 4th team in those conferences has a great argument over the 2nd team in the ACC or the Big 12. Previously, most times, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not saying that the Big 12 and ACC can't elevate their level of play, that they can't raise the right money and get the right teams and the right players there, because they can, because guys are going to these schools to play for money. But I'm saying 4 for Big 10, 4 for SEC. These are the power. They make the thing
and
go.
justifiable.
And you
got to
make them happy. You got to make those big dudes happy.
Remember Lane Kiffin sending text messages out, et cetera, about what SEC teams belonged, and then the SEC kind of did not do well, in the playoffs.
They did bad.
Did not do well in the playoffs, and so right or wrong, we can keep going. It's going to happen.
Or they're just gonna break off and do a power conference and do Big Ten versus SEC playoff.
I don't think that's good for college football.
It's not.
I'm with you. I'm with you. This is fascinating, and I think there is a solution here. So again, I'm gonna chime in. I'm gonna chime in for the quote unquote little guys out there, which is BS to call the ACC and the Big 12 little guys. But ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips saying that the ACC has not cemented a position on a format, but quote, there needs to be fairness. Agreed. And access to the championship. It needs to be a true championship, not artificial and not an invitational. Agreed. Big 12 commissioner, and we're a big fan of Brett Yormark, says his conference has been exploring, quote, predictive analysis and, quote, I'll be armed with data. You bet he is, because he's fighting for his conference. Here's a fascinating number breakdown. This is a great article over on Yahoo Sports. They go back to the 2014 playoff, right? And if you look at the top 14 teams just before conference championship weekend, okay? So starting the 2014s, the SEC has averaged about 4.7 teams per year inside that top 14, which certainly validates their point of saying we deserve 4 automatic berths, correct? Mm-hmm. Same time, the Big Ten, they've averaged 4.6. You could even make a conversation here that the SEC and the Big Ten are hurting themselves, right?
Yes.
If you're taking those averages from 2014.
Because almost 5 teams.
Correct. The Big 12, since the 2014, just before conference championship, they have averaged 2.1 teams inside the top 14. Right behind them, the ACC, 1.8. Notre Dame, 0.45. The Group of 5, 0.27. So if you're the SEC and the Big Ten and you're doing that number crunching, you're going to show your data to Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark. You're going to say, here's the numbers, and they match. They match what we're pitching, right, Coach?
Yeah, and then it's the numbers. I don't know what you're looking at, but was Oklahoma and Texas were probably the Big 12 teams, and then you had Oregon,
so they
USC,
pivoted,
UCLA,
they
and
pivoted
Washington.
with those in mind, right?
They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think it's.
I think the
first of
numbers
all,
are fair.
It's
Honestly.
done. It's done.
The numbers are fair to me. You don't get 3 teams in.
So
The
numbers are
Big
fair.
12, BYU is going to get in as the third team out of the. You know what I mean? Or
I know I'm a romantic, and I like the little guy, and
I
so
like
I guess
the little guy
that's
too. But at
that's
the same
what
time,
bugs me.
every
So-
conference isn't created equal at the same time.
Correct. So there's going to be years where the balance is going to be off, and it may not be the heavy hitters of the Big Ten and the SEC in charge. So to that point, I think there needs to be built in a little flexibility, right? There needs to be the accordion, right?
So give me your proposal.
So my proposal, instead of, and again, if you're the Big Ten and the SEC, you have the power, right? And the art of deal making, if you will, right, is go big, go bold. But know that if you don't get your quote unquote 4-4, you're going to be okay with 3-3. So just hear me out. If it goes 3-3, 2-2, 1-1 plus 2, right? So the Big Ten and the SEC, they get their 3 automatic bids each. That takes you to 6. The Big 12 and the ACC remain at 2, right? So that's 4 bids right there. We'll still give one to the Notre Dames out there. We'll give one to the Group of 6, right? So there's 2. So that's at 12. That gives us plus 2. Plus 2 picks. To me, that plus 2, all that is the best 2 teams in the nation that don't fall in that gap. Can it go to the SEC and the Big Ten? Hell yeah, it can. Can two of them go to the SEC? Absolutely.
And that's on the committee? You're putting that on the committee?
Who votes on
Stone,
that?
Is
it
Rob
ranking?
Stone model.
Is it ranking
Or
is it
top
eye
14
test?
teams? Nope. Okay, now we can figure that one out as well, because it has to be
Because I like this model. I do too. Stone. I like this model.
And there has to be, everybody has to understand how we're going to characterize the top 14 teams. If it continues to be the college football, playoff rankings that came out, which personally I'm okay with, I'll live with that. And again, the SEC and the Big Ten are automatically going to get 3 teams in. And then there's 2 wild card spots, for lack of a better term.
I know you've beat that up enough, Stone. So here I actually like that.
Thank you.
But I would say you need analytics on scheduling then.
Yes,
you can't
because
have
now you're going to
teams
have the
play
SMU getting voted in over Alabama, or if you have the same type of issue again with those last 2 spots.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. You're not going to make everybody happy. We realize that.
I know we're going to hit scheduling at some point. I am really fearful that we have finished. We will never or very rarely see marquee non-conference matchups. You're going to see the 50 to 7 preseason games for the first 3 weeks of the season, and Big Noon will have to be at one of them, unfortunately. So
we got Texas Ohio State,
great.
Big Noon. We got Texas Ohio State this year.
Did you come up with that yourself, Rob?
I did. It really
That's
wasn't
good
that
though.
hard.
He did his thing, right, Coach?
It wasn't that hard. I just subtracted and pushed some numbers around. It's
I like
all
the
fuzzy
model.
math these days.
That's good stuff there, Stone.
You know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pitch my 332211 plus 2 Model 2. Our next guest coming up here on the Triple Option.
He ain't hearing that. He
A
ain't hearing
Michigan
that.
man joins us. The Wolverine athletic director, the 2024 college football playoff chairman, the great Warde Manuel, joins the Triple Option presented by Wendy's next. And we got questions for you, Ward.
I can tell you right now, Ward ain't trying to hear that.
Light it.
Welcome back to the Triple Option presented by Wendy's. Rob Stone, former Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer with you. And my goodness, look at the background we're working with for this next guest, Warde Manuel, the longtime athletic director at the University of Michigan. Last year was the college football playoff committee chair. And Ward joins us right now. And I can't quite make out who's over your right shoulder. Help me figure that one out, Ward.
That's an easy one.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, this is my home office setup. My office in our building, we had the power go out, so we were told to work from home this afternoon, and so I happened to be here. And it's I know how much Urban and I have talked about Bo and Woody and the great respect we both have for those two coaches. And I know Urban has, met Bo and talked to Bo before. We talked about that. So I didn't feel like it would be too bad if I took this podcast from here.
So great to have you on. And we got to actually spend some time together. I think it was the Orange Bowl, might have been the national championship game, and had lunch and hung out. And I remember I walked away and someone said, "Man, you just hung out with the Wolverine athletic dress." Yeah, he's actually a hell of a guy, man. So
Yeah,
I met Woody Hayes in 1987, right before he passed away. Spent some time with him. I worked for Earl Bruce for a long time, and then I told you the story. But Bo Schembechler invited me up right when I became a first-time head coach of Bowling Green, and I read every freaking book on Bo Schembechler. That was my generation. How was it to play for one of the greatest to ever do it?
Well, he wasn't easy. I can tell you that. He taught me the meaning of really effort, hard work, determination, teamwork, commitment. Many of those big words, but the most important thing he taught Urban was, people they'll do a lot for you, but they'll do more for you if they know you care about them. And what we always knew, no matter how mad he got at us, no matter what the tension and the pressure were, we knew that Bo loved us as people and as people first. And so it was easier to take some of the hard coaching that he gave when you knew that it was coming from a point of love and wanting the best out of you. And so I'm sure that a lot of what you have done in your career in the coaching is that, you could be hard on players. And I tell my staff, I don't expect you to be easy, my coaches. I want you to push them because our student athletes come here because they want to be better and be the best. But just make sure they always know that you care about them as people. And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned from Bo.
Rob's dying to get into the college football playoff conversation, but I'm trumping him here because we got Warde Manuel on the show here. So the rivalry was one-sided. Now it's 4 in a row. What one or two things? Obviously, the talent. I mean, there's been some. That national championship team is one of the best teams I've watched. But even last year, what one or two things that you've witnessed, because you've been around this rivalry forever, that flipped this thing?
I don't know if it's one thing, Urban. I mean, you know how that is. I mean, that game, you could throw out the record book, you could throw out the, where people are and who's supposed to win those games. And I don't know what it was. I don't, I can, obviously I'm gonna give credit to Sharon. I'm gonna give credit to the staff and especially the student athletes. I mean, I played in that game. It's hard. It's a lot of effort. And believe me, we didn't win because Ohio State wasn't giving effort. Everybody was giving effort. But the reality is you had some things, go our way. You had a early pick changed, I think, the tenor of the game. In the second half, you had a couple of missed field goals from a kicker who was strong all year. That just seemingly it happens, right? And so I think that and just the tenacity of the game and the way our kids fought, particularly I think as we evolved, I think Wink called a great game defensively that may have thrown off the game plan. I mean, you know, as a coach better than I do. I just look at it as in the sense of that battle, it was so close that little things made a difference. And both teams were that was a hard hitting game, as you saw. The effort was there. Everybody was engaged in it. And I think you have, as it comes in all these games, little things that make a difference. Because normally they're not blowouts. I mean, there've been blowouts on both sides over the almost 100 years, 100 years of us playing. But you know, it's rare that that's the case in these games. And again, no matter what the record. And so like I said, I give a lot of credit to the kids and the fighting of the teams, both sides fighting for a win, and ultimately, you know, the way it came out is we won the game, and obviously very happy to do it. But it wasn't like we had some secret, things that we did. It's just and Ohio State didn't do any secret things either. I mean, everybody just came, and it is just a scrap match from the very start. And so that there was nothing. I think, if there's anything, Sharon, like we always want to do, is establish the run, and I think that was helpful. In the second half, that we were able to run the ball
and stop the run.
Yeah. And stop the run, but also keep that powerful offense off the field. I mean, that's why he really wanted to run and figure out a way to do it. Yeah, stopping the run. I mean, as you know, the two anchors of our defense are right there in the middle. Two unbelievable young men, but also just extremely talented defensive linemen. Ohio State center was out. You had moved they had moved some people around because of injury, and those kids had stayed injury free and played unbelievably well. So maybe those two are the key: the running game, and then, as you said, stopping the run. In Ohio State showed they could run the ball. We just said that in that particular game had a great effort defensively on stopping the run.
I'm going to hand it to Rob here in a minute, but I have to say this. So it's interesting you said Wink Martindale, the D coordinator at the Wolverines, called really a straight game, a lot like Vic Fangio did against Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. People related the two where they forced Ohio State, when you play that too high structure, to run the ball. And they ran right into the meat of that defense, a lot like the Chiefs and Eagles. I mean, it was unbelievable.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it.
You know what? The heck with Rob. Let's just talk ball here for a while. Oh.
Hey, I'm still getting paid the same. Doesn't matter.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, hold on. Let me add one more little question about Michigan and Ohio State. In this new age of the college football playoffs, and the Ohio State athletic director made a subtle comment after the game last year. Does Ohio State, Michigan still matter to the degree that it has and did for you two, with the college football playoffs being the ultimate goal lurking in the background?
Absolutely. I didn't hear the comment, but it's nothing. I like Ross. He's been a friend for a long time, and remains a friend. But this game means everything to both institutions, and I'll speak on behalf of Michigan. I mean, this is the game for a reason. It's called the game for a reason, and that's not going to change with the college football playoff. It didn't change with the BCS. It didn't change with the playoff format of 4 games. It's not going to change with 12, and if it goes to 118, it won't change. It's the game for a reason.
Yeah, you don't want me to go there. or Rob.
No,
you
no, I know
me,
where
but-
you stand already on that one, Urban. You're good. I'd just like to hear it from the Michigan side. I'd like to hear the maize and blue chime in on that. All right, so let's talk about the college football playoffs, Ward. Last season was the first edition of the 12 teams. You were the chairman for it. When you reflected back with the rest of the committee and reassessed how everything went, what were the big success points for you guys in your committee?
Well, I think one, the process that we followed this year was the same process that has been followed for the years, before us. We selected the top 25 for 6 weeks. We went all the way through, as we were asked to do by the commissioners, through the championship weekend, and selected the top 25. And so I'm very proud of what the committee did. I'm one of 13. I was the spokesperson for it, but proud of the way that we went about doing our business to rank the teams. And you're always going to have people who disagree. I mean, that's just the part of the business and part of being on the committee that's ranking. The same thing, they do the same thing with basketball committees and any other committees. There's always second guessing as to why something happened the way it happened. So I'm very proud of that. Very, very proud of the way the 12 team playoff played itself out. I mean, it's, you could talk about upsets and who lost and who won, but there was a lot of engagement towards the end of the year. In my opinion, more engagement because there were more teams involved. Even if you go all the way to the ACC championship game, where Clemson was in the game, where they wouldn't have even been a part of the conversation had it not been for the way the playoff was organized, where the top 5 champions get into the playoff. So for me, it was very much a great result for the first 12 team playoff because of that, because of the amount of engagement in games. You think about the SMU on the other side of that. You think about the Big 12 championship game and what that meant. Those are things that I think add a lot of value to the importance of college football towards the end, because the year prior, it was probably 6, 7, maybe 8 teams that were being discussed. Now you have all the way up to 16, 17 teams being discussed. Those things are, I think, the value of bringing this championship and increasing the numbers. And so I thought that was a good aspect of the change.
I think the other great thing is the fans want to see the great players, and it's heartbreaking at the end of the year when they don't play. They all played. I mean,
Correct.
It was so much fun to watch. And
Yeah.
So the look test is something that you hear quite often. And one of my concerns, and I shared this, is that I don't know how you do it. You're on that committee, and the analytics, or that, how do you reward a team that plays a difficult schedule, and how do you punish one that doesn't? I hope we don't see the disappearance of the Ohio State, Texas, the Wolverines, Alabama, the non-conference that is so good for everything, but it's not good for that team until they get rewarded. So I'm interested on your thoughts on that.
First of all, I don't agree with some of my colleagues who think that playing a tough non-conference opponent is the right way to go. That you're better off. I think the committee values those games, Urban. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We understand when teams play tough opponents and they have a loss. If you look at it, Alabama was the highest ranked 3-loss team because they had a very tough schedule and they won some tough games. But they were, I think, 11th in the last ranking because they also had some bad losses. And so there was a balance there. People often look at Indiana and say, well, they didn't play anybody. They didn't play a tough non-conference. They didn't really play a tough conference schedule. Well, they didn't select their conference schedule. And there were some other teams in other leagues that were also had a quote unquote easier path in their conference, from the SEC, from the Big 12, from the ACC. And so it's hard because of the increase in the number of teams in these conferences. You're not always getting top teams either playing each other or playing other teams that are playing well in that particular year. And so that is, I think, Urban, the thing that really sort of complicates the ability to have like resumes in front of you when you're judging a team that plays a light schedule and wins either in a big way or just wins, and a team that plays a tougher schedule and may have some losses to tougher teams. I think in the discussion, in the discourse that goes on in the room, we actually evaluate that and talk through those things about how we see a team, regardless of whether they lost to a tough opponent. Are they still one of the top 10, top 15, top 25 teams in the country? Not just looking at, well, they lost, so we're going to kick them to the side.
I have to ask this one question because I get it all the time. Does the committee ask the simple question, SMU, Boise, if because I was at Utah, so sometimes I fight for that underdog.
Yeah.
But it's also there's the reality. You stick their butt in the Big Ten Conference or the SEC where it's week after week after week. How does a committee come to grips with that when you have that conversation?
It's hard. It's hard to do because it's not going to happen, and so you're as a chair. I'm trying to keep hypothetical situations out of the conversation, and I say that, and it's no slight to teams, but and I won't even name teams this year. I'll leave it up to you guys to name. There's certain teams that lost this year to opponents that you would say 100% if that team plays that team, that that bigger team, that stronger team, that stronger brand is going to win 100%. I guarantee it. It's like Charles Barkley. I guarantee, that you're going to have a win. And the problem is we see it over and over annually. Each year we see teams who should beat other teams that on paper on the ESPN it has what 95% certainty a team's going to win. You never see 100 because people know anybody can be upset at any day of the year, and so it's hard. People want to go that way outside of the committee room, but all we could do is judge the resumes we see in front of us and judge people by whom they played. We can't say what would happen if Michigan had the same schedule as Indiana or Indiana had the same schedule as Penn State. We can't go to those places because that's not what exists in front of us. And so whether it's a Boise or Utah compared to a Alabama or Michigan, you can't, reverse it and play them and then say hypothetically in our mind, how would that play out?
Right.
The main criticisms out there were in regards to the seating. How would you change the seating going forward if you were asked? And does it actually need to be changed, or should we still be honoring these conference champions and giving them that bye?
Well, you know, uh, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti came out and said they would like to see the seating change to seeing the teams ranked and seated as they are. And I would 100% agree with that. I think what threw it off, and and I battled that with friends and people who would say, well, the number 3 team lost, in the playoffs. The number 4 team lost in the playoffs. And I'm like, no, number 4 team was ranked 12. Number 3 team was ranked 8. Now 1 and 2 lost because they were the same. But you have these shifts and you have these people these teams that to me it makes it unfair when teams are ranked 1 and 2 and because of the way they're seated that people can come into those positions and back stronger teams up into positions where they're playing you earlier than they normally would. And so I think it puts those teams that bounce out of um the top 4 because other teams come in, I think it puts them at a disadvantage. Because you're playing either tougher teams earlier or as the number 1 and 2 team did this year, they're playing a higher ranked team earlier in the playoffs than they would have if they would have just seeded them. So in my opinion, you add the 5 conference champions and you leave them ranked where they are unless they're outside. So this year, everybody would have been ranked 1 through 10. Arizona State would have moved from 12 to 11 and Clemson would have moved to 12. And then you set the playoff from there.
Agree.
Any
It's very simple, right? I agree with you, Ward. I think we all do. The college football world.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of all the alphas in that room and all the
man.
all the investments, experience. Is there a time where it gets heated? Is there a time, or I mean, I just at times I'd visualize what in the heck is going on in that room, because this isn't a game anymore. This is a business, but it's also players' lives. It's and then the road to the championship is so, and that was also received some criticism, which I get it. That not necessarily the conference champion had or some of the teams had a much easier road than another, and it's all part of the draw. I mean, tell us about the heat. Is there heat? Is there intensity, or share what you could share?
Yeah, well, Urban, I remember one time before I went on, it must have been the second or third week, I was watching the preview, the show as they were announcing, and the argument that was going on in the studio, between Reese and Joey and Booger and Greg, and they're arguing over why certain things and which team and who should be ranked and those kind of things. And one of the questions came up, and I said, guys, we did this. We did the same thing for, at the time, you take it, we are there 11 to 12 hours. We're sitting in a room arguing over the top 25. And yes, it can get heated. Yes, it does get heated, that people, nobody stands up, nobody pounds, nobody threatens anybody. It's all professionally done. But people, it gets loud at times, because people really, every one of the 13 of the committee members care deeply about wanting to get it right. And so they're going to express themselves. I, as the chair, would pull people in if they weren't talking, just to get them to give their thoughts about it. And a lot of the times, people wouldn't talk because it's already been said. So they felt like, well, what I was going to say has already been said, but it's good to pull it out of them. But in this case, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that kind of debate that goes on, and I want the one thing to understand about what happens in that room, Urban, is that it's all the way 1 through 25. There's no let up because we're past 12. Let's just hurry up and get it done. I mean, there's arguments between 21 to 25 in terms of how people rank, because we understand, to your point, it's important to those coaches. It's important, especially to those players. It's important to the institutions, and so we care what happens 1 through 25, and put that effort in all the way through.
Or let's pivot forward out into the future. And I know things are going to change in the coming years. So the Big Ten and the SEC reportedly have put out this concept for a 14-team playoff, and I know you're very aware of it. 4 automatic bids, if you will, for the SEC and for the Big Ten, 2 automatics for the ACC and the Big 12, one for the non-big boys, if you will, and one that's still kind of lurking out there for Notre Dame, should they fill those qualifications. So the 4-4-2-2-1-1 model, why is that the best thing for college football, if it is, in your eyes?
Well, I think, listen, it's all a part of the conversation. It's a conversation about expansion. It's a conversation about a way to potentially structure play-ins into the championship, that it's actually played on the field. There's commentary, for example, that certain people have said that they rather not be playing in the championship game. Well, that to me takes away from the fact that you have championship games. So if in the sense of it, you can come up with a format that actually has people who play into the playoff. Everybody would play into the playoff. That actually adds, to me, value to it, as opposed to some people saying, well, I'll just sit out. and I'll be selected. Well, you're leaving that game. That's a game of chance in terms of what the committee's doing. But I just think it's part of the conversation. It's something that I applaud Greg and Tony for bringing forward and having conversations with us as ADs to think about a new way to think about this playoff. Everybody, and when you look at and compare us to the particularly professional football, there's everybody's playing that last week into a playoff game. And in college, we don't have that. We have championship games where you have a certain number playing games. In this year, it's 18 out of 132. So if there's a format that allows some way for all teams to be playing in to the playoff, I think that adds value to it.
Is it
My
fair?
last question.
Real
Ward.
quick, Coach. Let me just hit this because I know where you're going here. Is it fair to the Big 12s? Is it fair to the ACCs? Is it fair to the Mountain Wests of the world?
I don't know. I mean, again, it's a conversation to be had around the playoff itself and how do you structure it and how do you strengthen it so that it adds a lot of value to football. Look, the argument of, and I've read some of it, that this has only been done out of greed. That's not the case. I mean, we feel like we would earn those spots anyway in a particular way. But if it's about changing it so that people are able to enhance the playoff structure and to play in and to the points that were made earlier, to get rid of this concept of subjectivity. Let's make it objective. Let's put some parameters on it and put a structure around it that has some objectivity, where teams have to play in order to play in, as opposed to certain teams playing their championship games and others get in because of de facto they're ranked at a certain place and they can't drop far enough to be out of it. I mean, that to me also says there's something when the questions are about so much about subjectivity and what people are talking about in the room. I think you put some objectivity to it and you put some games as a way to play in. That I think makes it, people see it as instead of just seeing it as, well, you're taking 4 spots. You're taking 4 spots, 2 spots, whatever spots the commissioners decide to do, and you're actually having people play games to play in. That to me is a format that follows what a lot of our leagues and our teams that we have in the way we play get to playoffs.
All right, my last question, Ward, is this: is that there was not long ago that the SEC Big Ten really wasn't close. And I was part of that. I remember when I first went from the SEC to the Big Ten, I was like, this is, even my wife said, my gosh. And then you have national championships the last 2 years, the stadiums, and this is even with Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Nebraska not being what they normally are. I'm sure they'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
But as an athletic director or former player at a Big Ten school, to see the and once again, next year is a whole other year. I
Sure.
get sick when people say, "Is the SEC done?" Of course not.
No.
But you have to recognize the transition of power, what just happened, and you have to appreciate it. If you're, I'm a Big Ten guy, grew up in that area. Now that doesn't mean it's over. I got to make, because I can see the headline right now. It's not.
No, it's not.
But there's a lot of credit to a lot of people, the athletic directors, the coaches, and most importantly, the players that have made the Big Ten what it is today.
Yeah, I agree, Urban. I grew up born and raised in Louisiana, so I know, what the SEC is about. I was raised in that, football. And I do agree that there was a time where the speed, the different things that they did in the SEC, they had speed with power, right? I mean, that was the combination. The Big Ten has always been about power and about running the ball. And I think, I give credit to, what Jim did, what Sharon's doing, what you did, what Ryan's done to really say, we want both. We want to really compete, and we see what we need to do to compete against teams that were dominant in that. And so I agree with you that there's been a change. There's been a different focus. There's been a need to adjust to the level of football that needs to be played in order to win the national championship. And so I agree that the Big Ten has changed the way they've done it. You brought that in from the SEC. Jim brought it in from, being in professional ball and understanding how to get to, in his case, a Super Bowl, those kind of things. You have to make those adjustments to figure out a way to win, a game in multiple ways. And I think that's been the success in the past couple of years.
Hey, Ward, when I say Ohio State, as a former player and an AD for Michigan, what kind of goes through your whole body when you hear those two words, Ohio State?
It's the greatest rivalry in college sports. It's a team that makes us our best, and that we want to win at everything we compete against them for. And so for me, it's a level of competition that makes the difference in terms of how you are measured. We measure ourselves against each other, and we play that way. We play at everything we do. We try to win against them, and that is an opponent. That's why I've always had respect, and I think that's why Bo respected Woody as much as you have the 10-year war, is because when somebody can bring out the best in you in the most competition and bring that level, then you have to acknowledge that and make sure that you step up to compete at every time in every sport, any day that you're playing that opponent. Now, you want to do that against others, but the history and what that game and what those competitions mean against each other, I think just elevates it to another level.
100%.
You were 3-1, right?
I think so.
What do you mean you think so?
That.
You got to know these numbers, man. Coach, Urban, what were you against Michigan?
I don't know. I can't remember.
He knows his numbers.
I can't remember.
Yeah. What was that, 7-0?
Oh, it sure as hell was.
Yeah.
He knows
That's
that
why
word.
he said 3-1, because he wanted to make sure
he fell right
he
into
never
it,
lost.
man.
That's what he wanted to do. Right.
Pulling you all in, man. That's so great. Oh, I love
Very,
this
very
rivalry.
generous with your time, Ward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
You guys. Thanks for the coverage y'all do for college football and everything that y'all bring.
Hey, we do it for college basketball too. I'm heading into the studio right now for college hoops. We got some great Michigan hoops still to go this March. Warde Manuel, the athletic director at the University of Michigan. Thanks so much for joining the Triple Option.
Thank you guys for having me.
Welcome back to the Triple Option presented by Wendy's. Rob Stone, Mark Ingram, Urban Meyer here with you. Now that we're in the college football offseason, we're going to take a look and take a crack at predicting the future with the old Triple Option crystal ball. So this segment, of course, brought to you by our great friends at BetMGM. Place your money line, prop, parlay, and same-game parlay bets at BetMGM. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly. As always, these lines are subject to change. So we're going to be looking at some future odds from the NFL draft, college football team win totals, a lot of other things. So with the NFL Combine just wrapping up the other day and kind of launching us into this NFL draft season, we're going to talk about the number one overall pick. But before we get to Combine odds, we want to flash back, Mark. We're going into the Triple Option time machine. Your Combine visit, all right? When you were a young man leaving the University of Alabama, you weighed in. What do you think you weighed in at?
I weighed in at 215, I remember.
215.
Yeah.
A mighty 5'9".
10. They cheated me. I was like 5'9" and 3/4.
They cheat me on my ID as well. I should be 5'10". A 4.6640. Your vert.
That's a lie. I don't know where y'all got that number from.
Okay, your vert
what was
31.5.
What was it?
4.66.
It was 4.6 though.
Okay.
High 4.5, something like that.
Are you all right with your vertical at 31.5?
No, I didn't.
Nope.
I didn't test well.
You
at
did
all.
not have a good combine, according to you. Your broad jump 9.10.
Listen,
you all right with that?
I didn't test great. I didn't test great at all. But listen, everywhere that you need a football player, I did. I did great in the meeting room.
Yep.
When they handed me the ball, had me going over the bags and changing directions, football stuff, I did. Now, if you wanted someone to look good in underwear and run fast and jump high,
that's where you come to me and coach,
and not play football really well.
Right.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me. I was a football player, man.
Not
so
an underwear
get me
model.
on the board doing the X's and O's. I'm gonna tell you who I need to pick up in pass protection. I'm gonna tell you how I need to press the heels of the lineman and cut it back and get vertical, get yards after contact. That's who I was. I was your football player.
All right, so you're not an underwear model. You are a football player. Okay, we got that.
Who you want, Coach? You want somebody that look good? I know you had fast people all on your team, Coach.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think there's a fine line, but I'm not a big, who can bench the most, who can do this. That don't say that's not important, because that is absolutely important.
It is important.
I think you also have to look at how was he coached. You get a Nick Saban player, that player's, and this is really intriguing. You get a player that from a program that is not well coached, you would always look and say there's a lot more room for growth there. You're going to get a guy that, and is the elite developer. An Alabama kid, I like to think maybe at Ohio State when we were there in Florida there, those players were coached up now. Those were, Mark Ingram, you better appreciate what you got, because he's been coached hard. He's been taught the right fundamentals. Don't devalue that kid that comes from some program. Then you go in and the scouts go in and say, wait a minute now. This cat has not worked on pass protection. This guy's not worked on this. He's not. And then can he learn that? That's, to me, the fine line of the NFL draft is take a look at what is the maximum. When that guy maximizes, what will he be?
Yeah.
And the one thing about a Mark Ingram, Mark tailback, I'm never that worried about 40-yard dash. But
I
can
had
he
the
do all
fastest
the other
10-yard
stuff?
split, though. Out of all the backs, I had the fastest 10-yard split.
Will he stick his nose on you in pass protection? Will he come out of the backfield? Does he understand a complicated offensive scheme? Those are all high-value marks in the NFL draft for that.
That's why the Combine is always so interesting, though, is because people get attached to this little window of data that is thrown at them, jumping and the bench press, and as you said, the lingerie show, walking around in their underwear. But there's more to it.
It is very important, Stone. It is very important, but at the end of the day, I think some people lose the point of what the Combine is. It's you're evaluating football players.
Yes.
So turn on the tape and see how this man plays football.
And sit them down and talk to them and have a real conversation with them and learn who they are. I think that's the real value these days of the Combine is those interviews and what happens in them. So here's what we're going to do, guys. If we were picking number 1 overall, who would we take right now? And we're not going to break it down and say, well, we're Tennessee or we're the Giants or we're whoever. We're not going to talk NFL fit. We're talking an expansion franchise picking number 1. The odds, you're going to see them right now. They are set by
expansion franchise picking number 1.
Expansion franchise.
So I don't have a quarterback.
You have nothing, okay?
Sheesh.
The odds set up there by our great friends at BetMGM. And this is something you guys can play with out there. And you're going to see the odds right now. And right now, the number 1 overall pick, it's Cam Ward. Again, the Miami QB, over 4,300 yards passing. Abdul Carter, the great defensive end from Penn State, plus 185. Travis Hunter, the two-way guy, at plus 1,100. His teammate at Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, at 1,500. Jackson Dart, the Ole Miss QB, at plus 500. So there's a lot of ways you can go with it. And, Coach, you were in this position, obviously, but I think the general consensus there is you can win first with a good defensive team, right? If you can get a good defensive team, you got a chance. But boy, if you got a quarterback that you believe in and can live with for a while, it's super tempting out there to take that QB to be the face of your program from the get-go, from the jump.
Yeah, I think the quarterback position is, it used to last. I used to laugh when they'd say, well, in the NFL, the quarterback's the most important position. I was like, yeah, no. So in college, junior high, and even Pop Warner, it's a quarterback-driven. But if you're going to take that quarterback, there has to be 0.00 doubt that guy, because that's not like a corner, that's not like a linebacker. When you take a quarterback, invest that kind of money, he's yours.
Yes,
and that's it. It's overdone. It's a wrap. And over the history, I don't have that in front of me, but we've also studied it before. When you get stuck with a guy that's not the guy that you think he is, that sets the program back or franchise back years, because you can't. No one's going to eat up his contract. That's a rugged place to be, and we saw it just in the recent history. There's been a couple, quarterbacks taken early on, and they end up being backups at some other place. And those teams, by the way, are really struggling. We don't know who, you don't want to list them all. There's too many of them. But you take a guy as a number 1, number 2, number 3 pick, and you say, I need a quarterback. I would say, no, you don't need you need a quarterback. You need the right quarterback.
Right.
And I'd rather invest, if it's not that guy, on a Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter.
Yep.
So who's your number 1 coach? I'm giving you the number 1 pick right now with your expand. Yeah, the fighting Urban Meyers will take.
I'm taking Travis Hunter. I just think he's, in my lifetime, very few can do what he can do. I stood next to the guy. I watched him. Obviously, we covered him quite a bit. I probably would play him both ways and just invest in that guy. He's a good person. He's got a skill set that not many, I've never, that can do both. I don't know if I've ever seen that, Mark. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy at that level do both. And there's something about him when he plays 170 plays, is 168th on offense, blocking 25 yards down the field, the same energy they did on play 16.
Yep.
So I'm going
Travis
Hunter.
Or the 120th play, forcing the fumble in overtime on the goal line to win the game.
Yeah.
So he's still getting a high level of play from this player, even though he's playing 100-plus snaps.
All right, so, Coach, you're taking Travis Hunter. Mark Ingram, you are on the clock with the number 1 overall pick this year for your expansion team. You are taking
my expansion team. And my expansion team doesn't have a quarterback. Lord. Listen, this isn't me talking, because I'm a big fan of Cam Ward and I'm a big fan of Shedeur Sanders. I think that they're going to be good professional football players.
You're not looking for good with the number 1 overall pick. You're looking for elite.
This isn't me. I'm not a talking head. I'm just Mark. But the talking heads out there are saying that this is the worst quarterback class in recent history. Wow. That's what the talking heads are saying. So don't say Mark Ingram said that, because I'm not a talking head. I'm just on the podcast with my friends. My name is Mark the Second. So I'm not the talking head, but that's what they're saying. That's what those people are saying on this TV. That's what they're saying.
All right, so what are you saying, brother?
So I'm saying right now.
Sounds like you're buying time.
I hate to be the copycat. You know what I mean? If I'm not in love with the quarterback selection here, I'm going to grab me one in free agency, like someone like Sam Darnold, who did well in Minnesota, and Russell Wilson, who is going to be on the block. You know what I mean? You got James
Justin Fields
out there.
Yep.
Justin Fields. Maybe I go with a veteran guy until I love my pick the next year. You know what I mean? And I'm going to take a playmaker at the wide receiver position and the cornerback position by the name of Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter. I'm copying Coach right here because I just love the guy. I love his mindset. I love his work ethic and the rarity of the talent that he's playing with at the wide receiver position and the defensive back position. You're getting a number 1 shutdown corner. He plays man. He plays press. He can play off. He has great ball skills on the defensive side. Then you got a guy who has great running, good speed, and great ball skills. We've seen him high point the ball, make acrobatic catches, run with after the catch. So you're getting 2 players for 1.
Yes.
And right now in this draft, I'm going with that. Travis Hunter. I'm getting 2 players with my first overall pick, and that is who I'm taking with the number 1 pick. Then I'm going to have to revisit free agency for my quarterback.
How about you, Stone?
Stone is a big fan of BOGO. Buy one, get one free, right? So Travis Hunter, I'm getting myself a starting wide receiver. I'm getting myself a starting defensive back. Hell yeah. I'll take that. I'll take that all day.
Travis Hunter for the sweep on the triple option.
Also, I would definitely trade out of number 1. I'd get out of that. I'd stockpile picks. The one thing that worries me, or it doesn't worry me, makes me curious about Travis Hunter is, there were definitely some conversations during that Heisman Trophy ceremony and going beyond it about off the field stuff with Travis. Everything that we've seen and we've dealt with, this is a top-level young man. This is an elite human being, not just an athlete. But I would want to make sure everything is kind of dialed in with his camp. Yep. But everything that I've seen and that we've been lucky enough to witness, and he's got Deion Sanders right there, who is going to be looking out for this young man in a father figure type role. I think I would feel very comfortable with that electric smile on billboards all over beautiful Stone City as my number 1 overall draft pick. He is an elite human being on and off the field, and I think he's going to be an absolute game difference. What's that?
I like to trade out of first.
Yeah, 100%.
I like
I'm
to
getting
trade
out
my
of it.
pick Expansion team,
I would
trade
be
out of the
so
first.
happy. Yeah, I'd be happy to trade out of
You
first.
trade
give
down
me
to
a couple
7,
picks.
8, 9. You're still going to probably get your guy.
And guess what? Give me a late round 1 or early round 2, and I'll be happy with Jackson Dart as a quarterback sitting right there and learning for a year or 2, and then just kind of pinging things around. So I like Dart, but I think it's pretty surreal that we all agree that Travis Hunter would be our face of our first year franchise. Pretty cool. Congratulations, Travis. We'll get you something for that from the Triple Option. Make sure to follow, subscribe, rate us on YouTube,
The Triple
Apple
Option,
Podcasts,
number 1
Spotify.
overall draft pick.
Number
We'll
1,
send
you
him a
went
trophy.
overall number 1, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as across social media at 3X Option Show. As always, thanks to our great sponsors, Wendy's and BetMGM. And Travis Hunter, congratulations on being the number 1 pick of the Triple Option's brand new franchise team.